Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call the March 11th, perhaps final meeting of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee to order. I would like to start off our meeting today with a couple of big announcements before I defer to my colleagues for their introductions. So the first is I was remiss to welcome to our committee State Representative Dan Gajewski. So welcome, Dan, and we're very happy to have you joining us, and congratulations on your election. The next thing that I want to do is I want to share that this committee has been a real privilege for me to chair this last year, but none of the work that we have done so far in this committee would be possible without the staff, both the partisan and nonpartisan staff. And so I want to just say a couple of thank yous before we get started. So the first, I'd like to thank our clerk, Sam Sims. Thanks for keeping us corralled. We really needed you. And the assistant clerk, Mr. Anderson as well. I'd like to thank our drafting attorney, also herding cats, Mike Tellerico. We appreciate you. Thank you. And I'd like to thank our OLR staff. They have really produced a lot of really fantastic reports this year that have helped us navigate some challenging issues. Matt Frame and Alyssa Santos. A really hearty thank you to Jacob Phillips from OFA. He has been helping us navigate some really challenging fiscal notes and find best ways to sort of navigate our waters moving forward. And I'd like to thank all four caucus staffs from House Republicans Ben, from Senate Republicans Noel, House Democrats Chris, and from Senate Democrats Bridget and Cutter. We appreciate you and thank you for helping us. And then from the governor's office, I want to thank Katie McGarry, who has been really working very hard with our leadership to get us moving forward. I don't think we'd be able to do any of the work in this committee without the leadership of our agencies that we oversee. So a special thanks to Commissioner Ron Welch and General Yvonne. We are grateful for your expertise and supporting us in any way that you can. And then I'm really grateful to my co-chair, Paul Honig. Thanks for taking on this battle with me this year. Our ranking members, Mark Anderson and Jeff Gordon, you guys have been a pleasure to work with. And our vice chairs, Matt Lesser and Hubert Delaney. This has been a really great year so far, and it's going to continue to be wonderful. And I'm looking forward to the continued collaboration. So thanks to everyone for the work we've done so far. I'm going to now give a couple moments to each of our rest of our fearless leaders. So Paul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to echo my co-chair's thoughts about all the staff and folks who help out this committee. We could not have accomplished as much as we did this year without all your efforts. A big thank you to my co-chair for her tireless work and advocacy and leadership, and to the ranking members for your collaboration. I'm really happy to get to work this afternoon and hopefully get some good bills out of the committee. Thank you.
Next, Senator Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo all that's been said as well. And big thank you to all the members of this committee, both sides of the aisle. I think we've gotten a lot of work done, even though this is, I guess, our final meeting. But if we still want to get together, I'm sure we can still congregate for special meetings or in Rep. Foster's office if we miss each other.
You won't all fit in my office, but you can come over for a meal anytime. Thanks to Rep. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It has been a pleasure to work with you and your co-chair, focused on doing the right thing for veterans and our military and our towns. And I echo your remarks about the staff. People don't see how much work they do behind the scenes, often nights and weekends without complaint. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you, both the members and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have really worked very hard this year to sort of lead this committee with a spirit that has certainly been carried on in sessions before, but of collegial bipartisanship. And I think I really appreciate everyone's work collaboratively. So without further ado, we are going to go through our agenda for today. And so the first bill on our agenda for review is Senate Bill 1396, an act concerning earned but unpaid wage or salary in banking. I'm so sorry. Switch between meetings. Okay, I'm sorry. We're going to start talking in veterans about earned wage access now. Let's not. Okay, my sincerest apologies. House Bill 6440, an act concerning the organized militia and the governor's guard. The motion that is suggested is a JF to the floor. Are there any comments? Rep. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I served,
Oh, I have to move first. I apologize.
pardon me?
I- A motion from Senator Honig, a second. Second from Rep. Heffernan. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I served in the Army Reserve more than 28 years, so I was very sympathetic to the military department when they proposed this bill, because they are focused on the readiness of the Army and Air National Guard, and also have the responsibility for the Governor's Guard, you know, the 1st and 2nd Horse Guard, 1st and 2nd Foot Guard, and we're concerned about the resource constraints on them. On the other hand, you know, our country and our state have a very rich history, and the Governor's Guard are part of it. You know, I've seen them at events and was in awe of them. So I felt strongly about preserving them to the greatest extent possible while easing the resource demands on the military department. Given that I have an amendment, Madam Chair, or the clerk has an amendment, I ask the clerk to distribute the amendment and I be allowed to summarize.
I believe everyone has the amendment now in their possession. Please proceed.
So the amendment is LCO 6204. First, it delays implementation by a year from July 1st, 2025, to July 1st, 2026. It permits the forming of these entities into a private military force, which can be reactivated by the governor. The original bill completely struck the Governor's Guard from statute, even mention of them. That was in Section 3. So it removes the original Section 3. It mandates the leasing of the properties currently used by the 2 Horse Guards in Avon and Newtown to the Horse Guards. But it requires these guards to assume the liabilities for the properties. It does allow them to raise their own funds and use them by donations, parades, and renting the stalls. It delays by a year the transfer of funds from the Horse Guard to the military. And the current statute did not specify how the Governor's Guard would be disbanded. So that puts that in the hands of the governor, which is fitting. He has that authority with the State Guard, which currently has no, he can raise it or disband it as he desires. So it does that. And it eases the burden of the governor from issuing orders year round, which was a big administrative burden, but may call them for official ceremonies without requiring, you know, orders that give excusal from work. It's being counted on the members to get in the good graces of their employer when they're asked to serve at events. So to any questions, that's the amendment, Madam Chair.
Before we go to a vote on the amendment, I'd like to just voice my concern. We have worked really hard with members of the Horse and Foot Guard, with their lobbyists, with their advocacy groups and constituencies in the legislature and beyond. We've worked really hard this session with them and with the governor's office. In fact, I think many people in this building have heard me say multiple times that I have spent more time this session talking about the Horse Guard than any other singular issue this legislative session. I say that to express my solidarity with the military department, who has spent a significant amount of time working with the Governor's Guard in trying to manage what is become a big, not only drain on financial issues, but on their human resource capacity and constraints. And as we enter what promises to be a challenging budget year, and what also promises to be a very challenging future for our nation, where our military department may be called upon to engage in conflicts that they are already engaged in now, but God forbid others. I really want to make sure that our military department has every resource readily available at their disposal to do the things that they need to do. So I will urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment and allow the leadership of this committee to continue to do the good work after we get this bill out of committee, where we try and find a compromise where there is a home and preservation of the history for the horse and foot guard, but we do our best to protect the military department, which is the priority of myself as the chair of this committee, but I think most of our committee, to make sure that the resources that our military department and our state as a whole has to allocate as appropriately as they can and they would prioritize. So I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment. Yes.
Madam Chair, I asked that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll.
Senator Austin.
Thank you very much. So I've spent more time thinking about this than probably any other single issue. That's a single focused issue. I can tell you I'm completely opposed to removing the horse guard and the foot guard from either state statute or its current way of being. I know that we moved this into the military department because the military department asked for this to be there. And the monies that are associated with this are not staying in the military department. Wherever this ends up being, that's where those monies are going to be. We are not moving it out and not sending the funds necessary to keep it out if that's what people decide that that's what's going to happen. But there are a number of concerns here. To completely wipe away the historical aspect of these units is just philosophically, I don't even understand it. I truly don't understand it. I'm not where Representative Anderson is on his methodology on moving it. I'll be voting no on the amendment, but I am not going to support removing the horse guard from where it is. I wanted to be really clear on that. And I don't think that that means that you're not supporting the military either. So when people say we need to support our military, there hasn't been a single thing that the military department has asked from the appropriations committee to put in that hasn't gone in. We added items to the military department that they wanted last year because they wanted it and we felt that it had great value. So to think that not supporting the amendment and not supporting the removal of it means that you are opposed to support to any sort of military support is something that I can't accept as a standalone statement. And I can speak this way pretty clearly. I joined the Army. I was regular Army, and I joined the Army 3 days after I turned 18. And because I'm old, I joined during the Vietnam time frame when it was not popular to even think about joining the military. It really was not popular at all. And I've always thought it was the single best decision that I made. But I'm going to vote no on the amendment, but I want to be very clear that this amendment does not indicate anybody's support or opposition to our military department. And I have said to General Evon, if he needs something for his military department and it's an appropriated dollar, Representative Walker and I are always going to support him. And I just, I wanted to make sure that that was on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Austin. I see a hand, Senator Honig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say on the record here that one of the horse guards in Avon is in my district, and it's a beloved institution there. People love seeing the horse guard in the Memorial Day parade and love, seeing the horses out in the field. And my support for the general legislation here is an effort to make sure that the horse guard continues into the future and is sustainable. The issue here is that the military department, wants to get the horse guard out of the military department. And if we're unable to find a way to get some sort of legislation to allow them to exist in a private organization, then they're not going to be around any longer. So I strongly support the original legislation that's going to try to find a way for them to be sustainable as a private organization. And we're still in the process of figuring out exactly how that works, but we need to get something out of committee today to allow that to happen. Further negotiation and changes are in the works. So I want to see the horse guard survive sustainably. I will be voting against this amendment here.
And I see a hand raised online from Rep. Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to comment briefly on the nature of this legislation. And before I do, first, I'd like to thank you, Madam Chair, you, Mr. Chairman, our committee staff, the Office of the Governor, and all of the parties involved on coming to this compromise. It has been a long and detailed process, but it's been done with consideration and the bipartisan nature for which this committee is historically known. My comments come from my two positions. First, as a volunteer for the Stanford Patriotic and Special Events Commission, where we help plan the patriotic themed parades for the city. So that's wherein I have personally requested the use of the Governor's Horse and Foot Guard, and my city has been the beneficiary of their participation. My second position for which I speak on this is as my experience as a military journalist, wherein I've been serving for the last 8 years when I'm not Representative Delaney, I'm Sergeant Delaney. And I'm going to be a no vote on this. And that no vote on this amendment isn't because I am not a supporter of the Horse Guard, but because I believe that our first mission, first and foremost, is for the military department. And I would caution the removal of the budget of this line item in funding for the military department. And the reason I say so is because I have personally seen when it looks like when military budgets are reduced and the focus becomes more on lethality and combat readiness than potentially family-oriented programs or programs to support soldiers. I know our military department, General Levon, has said at length that they could use this funding, and I hope that that funding stays. That said, I am overwhelmingly supportive of the Horse Guard and their volunteerism. I think they do an amazing job, but I am going to be a no vote today. And I'd just like to, again, echo my appreciation for everyone involved in this solution.
Thank you, Rep. Delaney. Rep. Nolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a tough one. I'm going to vote no on the amendment. And even voting on the bill is very challenging because I'm concerned that there is not enough time between now and the expected time to have the militia or the Governor's Guard find an option. I just don't know if they're given enough time to put things together to find a new home or a new way to fund their activities. They do some really great activities and events. And there's such a great historical context to what they do. And I'd really hate to see that disappear or become a struggle because they could not keep it together, either because of raising money or because of just any kind of mismanagement that may happen. I know there's been a lot of controversy with some of the behaviors and some issues that went on that is different for those in the militia and those in the governor's guard compared to those in the military. There's different standards. And I fear that one, the military sometimes or may get a bad eye if those behaviors are not curtailed. And also the responsibility falls on the military if behaviors do not change from what they had been or were. So I'm going to be a no for the amendment. And the only reason that I'm going to support it is because I have faith in those that are trying to work things out. But when it gets to the floor, if that doesn't happen, then I'll choose at that time not to support it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't mention that some of the extensive negotiations that we've had in between now, when this bill was introduced and recommended by the military department and supported by the governor's office, and where we've gotten to where we are now, we have spent countless hours, especially in the governor's office, trying to find a way that they could get all of the administrative support that they need through a nonprofit that has an existing healthy fundraising history and aligned mission and goals in a way that can help the organization. And so, you can't count your chickens until they hatch, but I think we're in a place where we are likely to figure out a place where these organizations will be able to continue on under the auspices of a nonprofit, but then address the state's liability, which is not insignificant, and that we have our military department and state agencies spending significant amount of time reviewing some of this litigation is a significant liability and strain on state resources that, quite frankly, could be better spent in other ways. And so I urge my colleagues to vote no on this amendment. And with seeing no further comments from members of the committee, I ask that the roll call be taken by the clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are voting on Amendment A, LCO number 6204 to HB 6440. Senator Honig,
No.
Representative Foster,
No.
Senator Lesser, Rep. Delaney,
Representative Delaney in the negative.
Senator Gordon,
Yes.
Representative Anderson,
Yes.
Representative Boyd, Representative Buckby,
Yes.
Representative DiCaprio,
Yes.
Representative DiGiovancarlo, Senator Flexer, Representative Heffernan,
No.
Representative Lanou,
Yes.
Representative Nolan,
No.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the negative.
Representative Poulos,
No.
Representative Santos,
No.
Representative Vale,
No.
Senator Winfield,
Senator Winfield in a negative.
Senator Ciccarella, Representative Gajewski.
No.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
With that, the amendment fails, and I'd like to thank my colleagues and
Can-
commit to.
Madam Chair, we could just have an announcement by the.
Oh, can we have an
clerk
announcement of the
on
vote tally?
On the tally, please.
11, no.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 5 votes in the affirmative and 12 votes in the negative, the amendment fails.
I'd like to thank my colleagues and commit to continue to work in the spirit of bipartisanship, moving this bill forward. Now this bill has the opportunity to be voted on as a whole, and as I've mentioned continuously, we'll continue to work on it. So I'd like to Representative Vale.
Yeah, I saved my comments for the bill, not the amendment.
Okay. And we have a motion open, and so you may comment, Representative Vale.
All right, number one, I agree 100% with Senator Austin's assessment of this whole situation. They asked us to bring it in 2021. I fought against that then. I didn't think it was a good idea. Here we are 4 years later, because we didn't listen in 2021. And we're in the same situation now. They don't want the responsibility. And then we talk of compromise. Compromise, when we talked about in the hearing, they talked about compromise. And I mentioned that you can't have a compromise if the parties involved in that compromise aren't in the room as part of the negotiation, which they weren't previous to this. So I'll ask, you said there was countless hours done. Was there in the governor's office, were all 4 foot guards and horse guards represented directly in these negotiations?
Representative Vale, I actually would be really happy to share with you. We had a very productive meeting that was in fact the nature of the compromise that we're hoping to progress moving forward, where we invited every member of, we extended invitations to the military department, the governor's office, all 4 caucuses, and all 4 militia. And each of them were given the opportunity to have one member attend the meeting, and everyone was given equal opportunity to share their piece. And we proposed compromise at that meeting that's where we've moved through to. And I'd like to point out what is interesting about the setup of a meeting like that actually gave the militia a 4-to-1 ratio of representation to the military department in that meeting. And they were all part of those conversations. I have returned phone calls from every single one of those militia members. I have taken meetings with countless ones of them. I can speak for myself. I think I can speak for Senator Honig and many other members of this committee. I have spent more time not just talking with the governor's office on this bill, but with members of the militia and their lobbying efforts than I have on any other bill I've worked on this legislative session. And so it is absolutely, they have absolutely had the opportunity to talk and engage. We visited the 2 horse guard facilities. That was an entire day where we were in the field talking to them. And so they have absolutely had ample opportunity beyond the public hearing, which was one of the longest ones we've had this year, to engage one-on-one with legislators and also with the governor's office representative in those meetings.
Again, this still seems pretty contentious to me. I think this is far from a resolution. We talk about continuing. We had ample time to get bills done here. I don't buy into that. We run out of time stuff. You can work on things off session. You can work on things all year. We don't have to pass bills every year just because to make people feel good. They should be well organized and done right. And they should be done by our JF deadlines in this committee. And if there's small little things afterwards, that's great. But we didn't finish. So this should wait till next year. Again, to me, voting for this bill as it is, could potentially get rid of these guards altogether. And that would be awful. I think they've been here. They're part of our history. And I just think that voting for this bill today is reckless and irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your comments. And I'm going to, before I let other people speak on this, I just want to point out that this bill that came through us as a proposal through the military department was certainly not something that when I took on chairmanship of being on the Veterans Committee, I anticipated that I was going to spend significant time, but it's out of a tremendous amount of respect for the history of these organizations that I have done everything in my effort to give them the opportunity to not just have their voices heard, but also to be able to find a way that they can move forward. But I will say that preserving history relies on those who are part of that history to carry its future on. And that means that sometimes they have state support to do that, but sometimes they also need to take on a part of being the voices in the history books as they have done it. And actually, in Newtown, the Horse Guard worked on publishing a book. And my understanding is that effort was something that they had done through fundraised funds, not through state resources. And they had success in preserving their history through those means. Publication is a significant way to preserve one's history. And so I am eager to see the history of a mounted cavalry and a foot guard preserved. However, I do think that when you spend resources on things, you are expressing your values. And so in my time, which is my resources, I spent a significant amount of time seeking a compromise with these groups. And so I worked very hard to make sure that people had the opportunity to have their voices heard, and that compromise is possible. But we also have to make sure that we are being good fiduciaries of the state in their resources as well. And so that's why I'm trying to find a compromise in moving forward that gets to where we're going. But I hear your concerns, Representative Vale, and I commit to continuing to work and address those. And if you'd like to meet and talk with them collaboratively, I'd be happy to include you in those processes. I think I saw Senator Austin had her hand up.
Thank you. I'm gonna go back to us talking about this underlying bill. And so, we have an underlying bill that we're now trying to privatize. That's what we're trying to do here. I point out a number of things that have been privatized to, I can't say, none of it's worked out. I haven't found a single privatization that's worked out. So let's talk about some of them. We decided that we were going to do privatization with, and we closed our state hospital down. Decided it's a great idea. We're going to treat people better. We're going to handle them better. We privatize things. So today, we have people with chronic mental illness in our prison systems at levels that we cannot believe. We have 30% of our homeless are mentally ill. And we said when we closed the state hospitals, I think it was Governor Rowland then at the time, but it didn't matter who was the governor because it was a federally related issue. And we said this is going to be perfect. We're going to treat people better. They're going to have better quality of life. Well, I can tell you, quality of life does not exist if you're homeless. Quality of life does not exist if you're in a prison for whatever reason because of your chronic mental illness. That's just not true. Then we decided, a number of years ago, we were going to close all of our training schools, which were for people with developmental disabilities. And we're going to put them all in because we want to spend our financial resources the best way possible. We're going to put them all into group homes and other places. And we're going to save so much money because private resources know how to handle government related issues. So we did that. And we said to all our nonprofits, we trust you. You can do more with less, more with less, more with less. So a guy named David Burnett said to me one day, Kathy, I'm doing more with less, more with less. Now I'm doing less with less and less with less. And all my workers are on food stamps and Husky for healthcare and LIHEAP for their insurance because the only way to save money is to pay people less money and they're not getting good care. And now we're going to take an organization that's been around for 300 years, more than 300 years. We're going to say to this organization, hey, you did okay. We think that you were great back in the 1700s. We appreciate the fact that you are standing up for us as a representation of our state in historical ways. And it costs about $1 million for each facility, but you can't get direct numbers from anybody because no one wants to give you the direct numbers. I find that a little bit disturbing because I'd like to know exactly what we're paying here. So if you count 2 DOAG workers, the fringe benefits, the horses have to eat occasionally. They may go to the doctors. They probably go to the doctors more than I do. And we you know, every once in a while you gotta fix a fence. So trying to get an understanding of what the cost would be has been especially difficult. But at the most, it's probably about $1.5 million for our history. Now, I've put in bills every year to help out with the 250th celebration of our country, to no avail, because people thought that having a celebration of history was not worthwhile. It should have led me to understand what we care about relative to history. But this makes no sense. It makes no sense that we're going to do this. And I've heard people say, we need to leave all that money in the military because this nonprofit is going to come around and they're going to willingly take on this horse guard. They're going to take these horses. We're going to give them the horses. I don't know. Last time I looked, horses cost money. I don't know. Maybe they don't anymore. But we're going to have the horses go down to someplace down in Newtown. So everybody in Avon is going to travel down to Newtown. The workers only work Monday through Friday. So the volunteers have been taking care of weekends and holidays. That's not going to happen anymore. They're going to drive down from Avon down to Newtown. We're going to say, well, you really didn't care about it. And then we're going to say, these are the governor's horse guard, the governor's horse guard and the governor's foot guard. It's beyond my understanding how a nonprofit is going to take care of the governor's horse guard. Are we taking out the name governor and we're going to call it whatever the name of the nonprofit is? I don't understand that. And these guys, yeah, there's a problem here, but that's why we have management. The problem has been in overseeing and managing. Do we have some people that need to be held accountable for bad actions? That doesn't mean that we disband an organization. Geez, for crying out loud, there's a couple organizations that have hit the paper over the last month and a half. If this is the way we're going to do this, that when there's a problem, we walk away from the problem and we don't resolve it, that's a problem for me. But above and beyond anything else, we are taking an organization that's been around since the 1700s and we're going to say, we appreciate your service. See you later. And in 10 years, there will be no representation, and we'll read in the history books and everybody says, well, read the book. Well, that is not a living representation of the history. It is not. They will not exist because we do not have a habit of funding our nonprofits well to support government activities. This is a government activity. It should not, under any circumstance, be moved to a nonprofit unless we're going to put in language that says we're going to support the nonprofit in perpetuity. We're going to move the money from the military card over to support this. We're going to make sure that there's representation that these people have, and we've been told in an email that the Attorney General is already cutting them loose based on this legislation. It is beyond my understanding that this is going on right now. That we are thinking that this is the right way to handle a bill. Now, I don't often agree with Representative Vail. He and I have had knockdown, drag out arguments on issues, but I can't agree with him more that this is being pushed through with no real forethought to the issues. Now, he and I have a bill and that goes in every year on getting rid of daylight savings time or whatever way we want to get rid of it. And we'll put it in until somebody finally makes sense out of us changing the time. But this is, to me, this is just so disrespectful of our history. The state of Connecticut is the Constitution state. It is not a state that says we don't believe in history. How can we get rid of something like this and say, this is the way it's going to go? We're going to spend hours and hours and hours on this. And if we don't do it, the governor says, oh, I'm just going to disband it. Really? Not if the legislature says you have to keep it, Governor. I'm sorry, but we actually get to decide. And that's offensive to say that. That doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me. And when we say we can't handle it, we have great military people here. They certainly know how to run a lot of things. I think they can figure out how to run a couple of old people riding horses on the governor's horse guard. I will vote no on this bill. I will speak against it, and I will speak against them allowing to keep the funding that needs to support these people and their animals wherever we end up putting them, because there is no way that we should just walk away from them. And not funding it is walking away from them. And I refuse to do that. So I will be a no today, a no tomorrow, and a no to not supporting them in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I'd like to point out that one of the avenues for a compromise is that if we work in collaboration with a nonprofit that offers the fiduciary stability that we think an organization like this needs, the MOU can say that they're unable to dissolve them and they have to maintain their ability to stand. In fact, I think the Foot Guards have the potential to continue to exist as their own nonprofits moving forward. So a lot of these things that are being raised as concerns, we've actually already put significant effort into negotiating with these organizations and finding paths forward that, in the nature of compromise, give some people some of what they want and nobody everything what they want. And so I think that there is a potential to go forward where there is a compromise. And I think, seeing no further comments, I'd like to take a vote on this.
Madam Chair, I had a
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry, Representative Delaney.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will do my best to keep my comments brief. I want to start off by giving a resounding thank you to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for your comments and for speaking on this bill. And I really truly believe that the spirit of that conversation is at the underlining foundation of bipartisanship that our committee is famous for, and that I am personally so proud to be a part of. I have nothing but love in my heart for this organization, and it has been that love that has fueled my personal participation in the hours and hours of conversations to reach a compromise on this particular topic. But I am going to be a yes vote today, and I'd like to call back to my experience as a soldier to expand on why I'm going to personally be a yes vote. And for me, it really comes down to legal liability and that of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I personally strongly believe that if you're going to be a part of the military department, that you need to be subject to the same trainings and standards that all service members are beholden to. For example, as a sergeant in the military, if I were to tell one of my soldiers to go on guard duty in the winter, there would be a series of trainings that I am responsible for giving and consequences if I don't under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And we just do not see that kind of oversight with this organization. I have nothing but love in my heart for the work that they do. And I truly believe that the compromise that we've been working towards will do our best to honor that history. But it takes more than a uniform to be a soldier. If you're going to be part of the military department, I strongly believe that you need to be beholden to the same standards of operating and the same standards of justice that all service members are beholden to. That said, again, I just want to give a resounding thank you to you, Madam Chair, to you, Mr. Chair, and all the members who've been involved in this work. I'd like to thank the Horse Guard and the Foot Guard for coming to the table, the Office of the Governor, and for my colleagues for your comments. I know that this issue goes across lines, but that's where I am, and that is why. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Delaney. Rep. Nolan.
Thank you for that, Rep. Delaney. And when I talked about standards earlier, that is a little bit of the standards that I was concerned about. And you know, I believe that the leadership is working hard to try and make a difference and putting all their effort in to save what they can save when it comes to the Foot Guard. And it's a tough vote today, as I said before. But because of some of the things that Representative Delaney did talk about, and even some of the things that Senator talked about, which I think were real on point, I really believe that with what they're putting into working on it could help out. And if it doesn't, then as I said earlier, when it gets to the floor, I just will not support it. And I'll reach out to colleagues to not support it. But I want to give them the opportunity to try and work out what they're working on to make things work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Nolan. Rep. Buckey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is one of those emotional, tough ones too, when it comes down to this vote. And I appreciate people putting their hearts out there for it. Those virtually, those here, Senator Austin and Rep. Vale agreeing on something, first off, blows my mind, which is fantastic to see. I love it and I enjoy it. I think the big thing I want to say is I appreciate the good chair's comments on how emotionally invested she has been in this process. And I want to applaud that in that she was putting a lot of effort into trying to fix this. My problem is when we're faced with legislation here, I think it should be ready here, fully baked before it moves over to either chamber. And when we don't have fully baked legislation, there's a lot at risk with that. And that terrifies me. So as much as I appreciate good intent, I can't vote on good intent. I have to vote on what's actually there. So I appreciated the amendment, and I think there's more that we could have done. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I still hope and pray that this works out by the time it hits the floor. But in the meantime, I can't see myself voting for something that's not fully baked. So with that, I'll be a no. And then thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Buckby. Senator Ciccarella.
Thank you to the good chair. Just a couple of brief comments. Throughout this process, I've learned a lot about the foot guard and the horse guard and what they're about, how long they've been around and what they do for us and what they can do for us that we haven't utilized them for. I align my comments with Representative Vale and Senator Austin. There are a few concerns why we're talking about this. There's some liability issues. There's some money issues. The good representative spoke of training. To speak to the training part, they're not the military. They don't pretend to be. They're not going to, perform certain tasks that the military would do. But they do have training for specific things that we may need, whether it's putting together a mobile hospital or it's my understanding through conversations in 2021, I believe it was, we had our reservists in South Africa, and there was some issues here at the Capitol when we were getting sworn in. Everybody was outside, and they almost got called up to do crowd control, protection, etc. And to do that, they would have been armed, but they have training every month. They certify with the weapons, this is something that we don't use all the time. But if we need it, it's not going to be there now. And I just think we have to consider all of those things. And I'm just speaking to the one aspect of the certain training. They're not fully qualified military, but they're qualified and have training in the things that we may need them for in the event of some kind of an emergency. And then there's also the history part of it, how long they've been around, the good they do for our towns, our municipalities, whether it's parades or other events. And I just think the way we're doing this doesn't make sense. And I simply can't support it. And I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ciccarella. Senator Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. I had to step out because I had to testify at Human Services on a task force I co-chair, but happy to be back. I've listened throughout this entire process and learned throughout the entire process as ranking senator on this committee about the Horse Guard, understand the items raised by the military department and what's been raised as well by those who are working on and working for the Horse Guard. This is certainly not an easy vote. There's a lot of complexities that basically have been going on long before I've been a senator. And to me, hearing more, I'm just concerned about any effort that would, lack of a better term, either erase them from the statute or change them dramatically. Certainly, I think there's more we can do if we had the time to sort through things in more detail. Maybe if we had a longer session, we could do that. But there's just a lot that's been going on. And for me, given where we stand, I do support the military. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to serve on this committee. But when it comes to this issue and some of the big decisions that would be made in this underlying bill, separate from the amendment we had talked about before, it raises still lingering concerns to me. And if we don't pass this or get this through this session, we can certainly use this to be a stepping stone to see what more we can do to be of help and try to thread the needle as best as we can. But at this point in time, given some of the lingering concerns that I have, what this underlying bill might do to the Horse Guard, I'll end up voting no on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Gordon. Seeing no more comments, will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are taking a roll call vote on HB 6440, an act concerning the organized militia and the Governor's Guards, and the action is to JF this bill to the floor. Senator Honig,
Yes.
Representative Foster, Senator Lesser, Representative Delaney,
Representative Delaney votes yes.
Senator Gordon,
No.
Representative Anderson,
No.
Representative Boyd, Representative Buckby,
No.
Representative DiCaprio,
No.
Representative DiGiancarlo, Senator Flexer, Representative Heffernan,
Yes.
Representative Lanou,
No.
Representative Nolan,
Affirmative.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the negative.
Representative Poulos,
Yes.
Representative Santos,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
No.
Senator Winfield, Senator Ciccarella,
No.
Representative Gajewski.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And we're going to hold the votes open until, is 4 p.m. good for folks? We'll hold the votes open until 4 p.m. Okay, moving on. The next bill on our list is SB 1091, and the action is a JFS to the floor with LCO number 5727. Can I get a motion? Moved by Representative Heffernan, seconded by Senator Gordon. The JFS language here is to turn what was originally changing the basic property tax exemption into a study bill, because we discovered that there would potentially be a bunch of complications and it would be a very disparate effect on different towns. So we're, opting to get some more information on this before we move it forward. Is there any comment? Being none.
Do we have I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, do we have the LCO number for the JFS language, please?
It is 5727.
Thank you.
Seeing no more discussion, Mr. Clerk, would you please?
I move we put it on a consent calendar.
Oh,
I'll second
okay.
that.
So ordered. We're going to move this on the consent calendar without objection. The next bill is SB 1150, an act providing for no-cost driver's license and identity card renewals for veterans, and the action is to JF to the floor. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Rep. Heffernan and seconded by Representative Gajewski.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to put this on the consent calendar.
Okay, seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 4, SB 1151, an act concerning certain federal veterans benefits and income eligibility determinations for certain public assistance programs, and the action is to JF to the floor.
So moved.
Moved by Representative Nolan. A second, seconded by Rep. Gajewski.
I move we put this on a consent calendar. I don't know if I'm, that's the right sequence here.
Without objection, so ordered. Number 5, SB 1429, an act establishing a personal income tax deduction for military funeral honor guard detail compensation. The action is to JF to finance. Thank you, Representative DiCaprio. And seconded by Representative Heffernan.
Mr. Chair, I move we put this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next one is HB 5074, an act concerning a motor vehicle number plate commemorating Connecticut women veterans. This is JFS to the floor with LCO number 6162.
So moved.
Moved by Representative Nolan, seconded by Senator Gordon.
Mr. Chair, I move we put this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. Next up is number 7, HB 6439, an act concerning a fee waiver at public institutions of higher education for certain veterans and members of the National Guard, and the action is to JFS to the floor with LCO number 6164.
I'll make the motion.
Senator Gordon makes a motion, seconded by Representative Nolan.
Mr. Chair, I move we move this item to the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next item is item 8, HB 6722, an act concerning reimbursement of certain fees for veterans or sponsors of veterans in apprenticeship programs, and the action is to JFS to appropriations with LC number 5726. The motion, Senator Gordon makes the motion. Representative Buckby seconds.
Mr. Chair, I move we move this item to the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 9, HB 6724, an act creating a special motor vehicle number plate in recognition of the Borinconeers. And the action is to JF to the floor. Representative Nolan made the motion. Senator Gordon seconded.
Mr. Chair, I move that we put this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 10, HB 6728, an act concerning free ridership for veterans on modes of public transportation on Veterans Day. The action is to JF to the floor. Moved by Rep. Nolan, seconded by Rep. Buckby. Moved by Rep. Heffernan. It's my left ear is my bad ear, sorry.
That's my bad ear too. Mr. Chair, I move that we put this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. Next is item number 11, HB 6734, an act reducing for veterans and members of the armed forces the fee for certain specially motor vehicle number plates to no more than the cost to make such plates, and the action is to JF to the floor. Senator Gordon makes the motion. Representative Buckby seconds.
Mr. Chair, I move that we put this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 12, HB 6735, an act prohibiting the ownership possession or acquisition of interests in real property upon or abutting military installations or agricultural lands by certain foreign entities. And the action is to JFS to the floor with LCO number 6173. Moved by Representative Buckby, seconded by Representative Heffernan.
Mr. Chair, I move we place this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. We'll skip number 13 and we'll move on to number 14, HB 6765, an act concerning assistance with dental services for certain veterans. And the action is to JFS to the floor with LCO number 5729. Senator Gordon makes the motion, Representative Buckby seconds.
Mr. Chair, I move that we place this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 15, HB 6767, an act concerning a disabled veterans revolving loan fund. The action is to JFS to appropriations with LCO number 6225. Moved by Representative Heffernan, seconded by Representative Buckby. Mark?
Mr. Chair, I move that we place this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. We'll skip number 16, go to number 17, HB 7121, an act excluding veterans' federal service-connected disability benefits for purposes of eligibility for assistance from a public defender. The action is to JF to the floor.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Rep. Nolan, seconded by Senator Gordon.
Mr. Chair, I move we place this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 18, HB 7122, an act excluding veterans' disability payments from qualifying income when determining certain property tax relief. The action is to JF to the floor. Moved by Representative Buckby, seconded by Representative Heffernan.
Mr. Chair, I move that we place this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. The next is number 19, HB 7123, an act concerning military families and education policies regarding enrollment for purposes of special education and placement stability. The action is to JF to the floor. Moved by Representative Heffernan, seconded by Senator Gordon.
Mr. Chair, I move that we place this item on the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, so ordered. All right, so let's go back to item number 13, which is, should we vote on the consent calendar first? Okay. Let's vote on the consent calendar now. And so, Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are voting on the consent calendar, which contains items 2 through 12, items 13 through 15, and items 17 through 19 on the agenda. Senator Honig,
Yes.
Representative Foster, Senator Lesser, Representative Delaney,
Representative Delaney in the affirmative, and thank you, Sam, for all your hard work this year.
Senator Gordon,
Yes.
Representative Anderson,
Yes.
Representative Boyd, Representative Buckby,
Yes.
Representative DiCaprio,
Yes.
Representative DiGiovancarlo, Senator Flexer, Representative Heffernan,
Heffernan, yes.
Representative Lanou,
Yes.
Representative Nolan,
Affirmative.
Senator Austin, Representative Poulos,
Yes.
Representative Santos, Representative Vale,
Yes.
Senator Winfield,
Senator Winfield in the affirmative.
Senator Ciccarella,
Yes.
Representative Gajewski.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we'll move on to item number 13, which is HB 6748, an act concerning the recording of a military discharge characterization upon a state veterans registry as honorable. And the action is to JFS to the floor with LCO number 6160. And the substitute language is to expand eligibility for the existing EQRB qualifying eligibility qualifying review board. Are there any comments? Rep. Vale. Oh, I'm sorry. Moved by Representative Heffernan, seconded by Representative Gajewski. Representative Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just some clarifying questions. If I'm not understanding, I see what it says, but I understand, is this something that's happening in the state of Connecticut? Like, who's being discharged less than honorably for their sexual orientation?
I don't think that the EQRB has received any applications for this type of thing to date, but given what's happening in Washington, where the president has
What's
said,
happening in Washington?
well, the president has said that transgender soldiers are going to be, not allowed in the military.
And again, that's kind of my point. This seems more politically based legislation than it is where we're trying to find a solution to which currently doesn't have a problem. And I don't know how a state has jurisdiction over federal government's how someone is discharged and how they would be discharged. Like, I get the semantics, but I don't understand the purpose.
The purpose is to keep a separate state registry so that, people who are discharged solely because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, can have a record in the state that their service was honorable.
And I support people being able to pursue and have whatever they want in their personal lives, but is there any other type of discharge from the military that we have a registry for? Or are we creating something new here for something that doesn't yet exist?
I think I think the registry would be new, but we have the EQRB provides for people to get benefits in certain situations, including being discharged for sexual orientation or gender identity. And I believe like PTSD and things like that as well.
Okay, and so darn acronyms get me every time. The ECRSB.
EQRB.
EQRB. So, but there's no record of them in Connecticut having dealt with anyone who's been less than honorably discharged from the military for their sexual orientation. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Again, I understand the semantics, but I'm not into passing legislation based on what could be, but rather than what is. And it seems somewhat political to me, and I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Vale. Any further comments? Rep. DiCaprio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you just elaborate on, this has less than honorable discharge? Does that include dishonorable discharge? Would someone in this situation have a dishonorable discharge? Do we know that? That?
I do not believe so. One second. It's at ease. This is specific to other than honorable discharges, does not include bad conduct discharges like a dishonorable discharge.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further?
Mr.
comment?
Chair. This is a map frame from OLR, just for the committee's edification. There is in fact already a Connecticut Service Member and Veterans Registry that has been created in the state. So this bill does not create that registry. If that's helpful information.
Thank you for that clarification. Rep. Val.
Thank you for that. So who is currently on this registration, if it already exists? Like what's it there for currently?
I believe it's there to keep track of benefits that people receive from the state.
So it has nothing to do with how people are discharged. This would be just to add them to that.
Looking at what information provided from the USDVA, the purpose is to create a contact list to facilitate notification of service members and veterans as to military and veterans benefits and other useful information. The registry is compiled using information from the DVA records, including that are submitted from the military department, the assessor of each town, and service members and veterans. Some of this documentation likely also includes their discharge ratings.
Okay, thank you.
Rep. Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to comment very quickly on the bill and to thank my my good colleagues for the questions on it. Just a couple of quick things is first, the EQIB does already exist as Mr. Chairman had mentioned, in that service members can already apply to the EQIB to receive their benefits if they've been receiving a discharge that's other than honorable based off of their sexual orientation. What this would do is add that their service is considered honorable in the eyes of the state when they go through that process. And to comment quickly on the need for this issue, there has been a memo released by the presidential administration, not only to cut off the onboarding of new troops who are transgender, but to also start the process to out-process soldiers who are currently serving who are transgender. That memo went out last month.
Thank you, Rep. Delaney. Any further comment? Senator Ciccarella.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I guess I'll start by saying I do not believe someone should be discharged for their sexual orientation. So if there is a situation where that's happening, this possibly may be needed. But from the conversation I just heard, right now there is currently no one that was discharged underneath this current definition, if you will, sexual orientation, gender, or gender expression.
That's my understanding.
Okay. And just one more follow-up question, just clarification. If in fact somebody was discharged for solely a different reason, but may have a different gender identity, so they were discharged for a disciplinary or something else, but then they also fall in this criteria, it would not make them have a status of an honorable discharge, just for
That's
clarification.
correct.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying. Thank you.
Any further comment? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are voting on HB 6748, an act concerning the recording of a military discharge characterization upon a state veterans registry as honorable. Senator Honig,
Yes.
Representative Foster, Senator Lesser, Representative Delaney,
Representative Delaney in the affirmative.
Senator Gordon,
Yes.
Representative Anderson, Representative Boyd, Representative Buckby,
Yes.
Representative DiCaprio,
Yes.
Representative DiGiancarlo, Senator Flexer, Representative Heffernan,
Yes.
Representative Lanu,
Yes.
Representative Nolan,
Affirmative.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the affirmative.
Representative Poulos,
Yes.
Representative Santos, Representative Vale,
No.
Senator Winfield,
Senator Winfield in the affirmative.
Senator Ciccarella, Representative Gajewski.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And again, we'll be holding votes open till 4 p.m. Okay, the last item on our list is number 16, HB 6874, an act establishing protections for veterans from benefits claim sharks. And the action is to JFS to the floor with LCO number 6183. Do I have a motion? Representative Heffernan makes a motion. Second by Rep. Gajewski. Rep. Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Has there been any opportunity since the public hearing to meet with groups that may advocate for a fee on behalf of veterans?
I have not personally met with those groups, but I think that there have been some talks with folks, and I do believe the JFS language removes the lines which prohibit taking a fee from the legislation, and that was done because the people who represent veterans on appeals of a denial of claims do charge a fee. So I believe that the folks who provide services to veterans on the initial claims would potentially be able to operate as they were they to get the proper certification that's required by the law.
Okay, so they can hire a lawyer after they got turned down and pay a fee, but they can't hire a company ahead of time, their choice, they're adults. If they don't think they have access, I fought on behalf in this committee for our municipal veterans reps in our towns. I think that's such an important aspect in getting more VSOs, which I've supported all the time. And those things are huge. And we want everyone in every community to have access to the programs. People, when I first started here, I didn't think there were enough programs for veterans in the state. And a lot of other people have that concern. And then I found out, having been part of this committee, and being in leadership on this committee, how many programs there are. The hard part is no one knows how to sign up for them. No one knows how to access all the help, whether it be a federal program, a state program, nonprofit program, whatever it is. And we have some communities, and we've talked about this. I represent a district that's very well represented when it comes to helping out veterans in their communities. But it's, to me, I actually think we're doing a disservice to veterans in this, because we're taking away a potential resource they have if they needed someone, if their community and they wanted to reach out and have an advocate to help them sign up for the programs and fill out the forms right and do whatever it takes to get to qualify those programs. I don't see why that's a problem. They were able to make those, if they exist and they're out there and they help people get on programs and they take a fee for helping them on there, I don't see the problem with that. This looks like a very lawyer-friendly bill to me, where, if you don't get qualified, then you can lawyer up and then go appeal the process so that, they're making their piece on the other end. You know, if I was going to sell my home, you know, I'm going to hire a real estate agent. I can sell it on my own if I choose to as an adult. I can make that decision. I want someone who understands this better. I don't know how to get through the legal jargon in a closing and all that. So I hire someone to help me find a home. And then if I want to sell my home, I hire someone, you know, and you have two different people, one advocating for one side, one advocating for the other. You know, it's the American way. So I couldn't support our local organizations, our federal organizations anymore. They do a great job. But if a veteran feels that if they want to try another resource to get the benefits they want, we certainly shouldn't be taking that resource away from them. For those reasons, I'll be opposed to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Vale. I just point out that I think the way that the law is worded, if these companies do get certified by the federal government, then they would be able to operate as they do. Representative Buckby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I really like the concept of this bill in protecting our veterans, especially the seniors who are involved in that. I think it's a good idea. The only concern I have is I don't want to deter any of the good eggs that are in there. There's a lot of bad eggs out there, but there's some really good eggs who are helping people out. And I want to make sure we don't get too far carried away. As we've seen in energy, we've seen good eggs have to go running. I'd like to make sure that we have those good eggs who can stick around and stand up for our veterans. So I'll be supporting the bill. I just want to keep a close eye that this doesn't mess with those good eggs that are doing a great job out there for our vets. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Buckby. Senator Chicarella.
Thank you. My understanding of this piece of legislation is to address some bad actors that may be taking advantage of some of our veterans. Is that a fair assessment for you?
Yes.
And my understanding from listening to some of the public testimony, that there are companies that are above board. They charge a fee that is transparent, reasonable, and they provide a service. And in my opinion, this is going to stop these companies from helping our veterans. And I have a concern with that. You know, all too often there are people that do bad things. We try to solve that problem and then wrap up a large group of people that may be doing the right thing, providing a valuable service, and really who could really be punished here are the veterans that simply can't get a hold of the people that are in the federal government that are tasked with this responsibility of helping the veterans. So you mentioned that individuals that are conducting business like this, non-federal entities, they're private businesses, can get certified and be able to perform this service. Is that true?
I believe the legislation prohibits people who are not certified by the federal government from performing these services. So if they got certified, then they would be able to perform the services.
Got it. So if these private entities aren't with the federal government, how would they be able to do this service that they're doing right now?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
If the companies, these private companies that are providing the service right now, performing this on a daily basis, helping people, they're not with the federal government, where's the avenue for them to get licensed if you have to be a federal?
I believe
entity?
that I don't believe you have to be a member of the federal government to provide the services. You can get certified as someone who's able to provide the services without being a member of the government.
Okay. I'll have to look into that. That's good as long as they have an avenue and they're doing the right thing. I think we make sure we have those resources there.
I remember from the public testimony, one of the folks from one of these organizations saying that they were pursuing that avenue about how to get certified.
Got it. Do they have to be attorneys to be qualified through the federal government?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
LCO is saying no.
Okay, because in that public testimony, I heard some of the individuals saying that they're not attorneys, therefore they couldn't provide that service because an attorney would need to do that. And these guys are just lay people that understand the process and help them navigate it. So that's something that I'll have to look further into. And right now, if somebody is a bad actor, a scammer in any space, whether it's with our veterans or some of the people we get these phone calls for or phishing emails, I mean, that's against the law now, and the bad actors could have consequences. Just wondering why we don't find a way to address the individuals that are doing this and not rope everyone up. And I didn't know if that was discussed in any of the conversations or when you guys were talking about the bill and
Yeah, my,
screening.
my understanding is that one of the points of this legislation is to put some teeth into the fact that federal law already prohibits this, but there's no enforcement action. And making this a CUPTA violation allows the Attorney General to take action.
Excellent. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Senator Ciccarella. Representative DiCaprio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, the certified parties we're talking about, they are not allowed to charge compensation for their efforts, or are they?
My understanding is we removed the parts of the bill that prohibit receiving compensation for these services. So
Okay.
if they were certified, they would be able to charge compensation.
Yeah, I think we're removing something that's could be valuable for many people. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further comments, will the, sorry, Senator Austin.
Apologize. Just a simple comment. I'm going to support this bill moving forward, but I'm not going to support it moving into on the floor of the House or Senate without some clear understanding on why we're using a cudgel to deal with something that should be just a minor change. We've created a section here that is instead of dealing with the bad actors directly, we are creating a point where we are taking something out on everybody. And I find that to not be as useful. Again, I'll support it out of the committee today, but I would like to see some changes where we are a little bit more delicate in our handling of this issue. I spoke against this when the Attorney General was there. I sometimes think that he is attempting to take over a lot of things that are not necessary by the Attorney General. But I think that this is something that we need to pay attention to. So again, I'll support it out of here, but I want to see some changes on the bill before we move to a full vote.
Thank you, Senator Austin. Senator Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo some of the concerns that have been raised by my colleagues. I can understand when there's bad actors and we want to deal with the bad actors, and we should. Not just because we're dealing with veterans and their families, because it's the right thing to do in general. But I do understand that we don't want to be heavy-handed. We don't want to be giving too much authority to the Attorney General without some real clear legislative intent as this moves forward, because that would be extremely important. I'm going to vote yes on this because I believe it's an issue we should be working further on, and I believe we can do that outside of committee as it heads to the House and to the Senate, taking into account what we've heard during public hearing and what we've been hearing today at our committee meetings. So, and I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chair, and with Chair Foster and with Ranking Member Anderson to see what we can do on this bill as it moves forward, taking into account that we really want to focus as best as we can on the bad actors and not really limit those who are working in a good way, trying to serve the veterans if the veterans on their own are seeking this out and not coerced into anything. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Gordon. And I just want to note that I'm happy to work with both you and Representative Anderson, along with Representative Foster, to see if we can improve this legislation as it continues on. Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you and your co-chair for your leadership on this issue. I think this bill is very important. I think that there is this glaring loophole that was brought to the committee's attention, and I'm really grateful to the leaders of this committee for trying to find a state solution. Clearly, there hasn't been a solution at the federal level, and this is deeply personal to me. I've talked about this bill extensively with my dad, who went through this himself more than 30 years ago. I vividly remember what it was like when he finally was able to qualify as a disabled veteran and what a difference that meant to our family. And I talked with him extensively in recent weeks about what a long process that was. And the idea that an entity that would have put itself out there to supposedly help him would have gotten such a sizable amount of that back disability pay from any veterans, just an outrage, frankly. And I'm very grateful that we're going to do something about that and make sure that veterans in this state can't be taken advantage of. As some of my colleagues said here today, there's a lot of different supports in our state for veterans. There's local municipal veteran service officers. Our state Department of Veterans Affairs has incredible advocates who work directly with veterans to help navigate these complicated processes. And frankly, the VA has been reformed in recent years, particularly with the PACT Act and the change in the burden of proof for veterans that are attempting to get their disability benefits. So we've made great progress, and this is a big loophole that needs to be filled. And if Connecticut wants to stand out as a state that does an incredible job of giving service to our veterans and thanking our veterans, a measure like this is incredibly important. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Flexer. I appreciate your personal story there. Representative, okay, seeing no further comment, Mr. Chair, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are voting by roll on HB 6874, an act establishing protections for veterans from benefits claim sharks. Senator Honig,
Yes.
Representative Foster, Senator Lesser, Representative Delaney,
Representative Delaney votes yes.
Senator Gordon,
Yes.
Representative Anderson, Representative Boyd, Representative Buckby,
Yes.
Representative DiCaprio,
To flag this, I'm going to be a no today.
Representative DiGiovancarlo, Senator Flexer, Representative Heffernan,
Heffernan's yes.
Representative Lanou,
No.
Representative Nolan,
Nolan in the affirmative.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the affirmative.
Representative Poulos,
Yes.
Representative Santos,
Yes.
Representative Vale,
No.
Senator Winfield,
Senator Winfield in the affirmative.
Senator Ciccarella, Representative Gajewski.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Okay, we're going to be in recess and we're going to hold votes open until 4 p.m. Thank you, everyone on the committee for working here today.
Mr. Sims?
Hey, Senator Winfield, how are you doing?
No, I'm not. I would only deny it.
I'm all right. How are you?
Was then to have.
I believe the only vote that you did not make was for item 1, HB 6440, concerning the organized militia and the governor's guards.
In the affirmative.
What are you doing?
No, I'm not. I would only deny it.
I'm all right. How are you?
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yes, in the affirmative.
Thank you very much, Senator. You are all set.
Have a great day.
You too, thank you.
How are ya?
How are you doing?
Good, good, good. Okay.
Good. So we have
So I-
4 votes.
Yep, I have the agenda in front of me.
The only things that are not on the consent calendar are item 1,
Okay,
item 13, then
okay.
16.
All right, so we can go down. All right, number 1, that's 6440.
Yep.
Yep, and that'll be a yes.
Alrighty.
What was the next one you said?
Item 13, that is 6748.
6748. Yes.
Alrighty. Then item 16, 6874.
6874 is a no.
Alrighty. And then the consent calendar.
And a yes and a consent calendar.
Thank you. Thank you. You're all set.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.